So if you guys are not aware, in your gift box right now, as long as you're on Global Dokkan, you do have a gift card and then also 30 stones. And with that gift card, you can use it to exchange for one of these characters in this little pool of units right here. Now, unfortunately, most of these units are just aged and they just suck. Most of them either have had their EZA for a long time and they suck because of that, or they desperately need their EZA. But there are a couple units in this batch that do have some value. So that's exactly what we're going to be going over in today's video. Who you should pick with your gift card, or I guess who you should exchange with your gift card. Now, first off, this is just an obvious pick. Physical Super Saiyan Bardock. He's really good. Defensively, he's insane. He's got that guard. He's got this insane starter turn defensive stat. He's getting 50% defense on his super. So a lot of value with having this guy, especially because he's a really good support as well. You know, there's no category restriction behind it either, or extreme class or like super class. Just straight up all allies 2 key and 30% the stats. So pretty much any team he's on, I mean, he's just going to be really useful for, right? He's an insane defensive unit, and then he's supporting. And especially for stuff like Revenge, Stored Figures, Legendary Existence, Exploding Rage, Crossover, this guy is going to be very useful for, because those teams, I don't want to say are bad, but they're not necessarily the best. So then having a really good support and a really good defensive unit like this guy on the team definitely would help. Now, of course, his damage isn't really that great. I mean, he only gets 180% attack when performing a super. And then that's pretty much it. I mean, he doesn't have any crits or additionals or anything like that. So his damage is going to suck. There's no getting around that. But considering how good he is defensively and considering his support, I don't really think that matters. Especially because, I mean, defense is just more important than offense right now. Can't really argue otherwise. So even if a unit isn't doing that much damage, but defensively they're insane and they're a support, of course they're going to have a lot of value. Now, that's not to say this guy's perfect. He definitely does have his issues. As you can see here, he gets guaranteed guard after he receives an attack. So then before you receive an attack, if you get hit with like an AoE or something, yeah, this guy's going to be rough. Or if you get supered first thing with this guy in slot 1, he's going to take a lot of damage. But then once you get the guard, you're basically taking no damage from normals, and you'll take a little bit of damage from supers maybe. But then if you take another normal that's not a super, you get this extra 30% defense, and then he's chilling. He's good. Because then at that point, he's around, you know, maybe 400, 500k defense with guard. And if you let him get his super attack off first, he gets the 50% defense there. Then he's pushing some really crazy defensive stats with guard. Now, of course, if you don't have him, you're only going to get him 55%. But even 55%, he can look pretty impressive because, you know, his stat buffs are really good, especially for an easy ATUR. So physical Bardock, definitely a good option to pick. But another unit that you could choose with your gift card is the STR Super Saiyan God Goku. So Super Saiyan God Goku is very good. He does have damage reduction built in, and then he is also, I mean, he's not like a stacking unit, but he's carrying over defense into the next couple turns. So he's stacking for a short period of time, I guess. So the super attack effect is that he gets 50% attack and defense for 3 turns. So if you go full additionals with him, or not even full additionals, because I think dodge might be a little bit more important, but if you give him some additionals, so then he has the chance to get the double super, which he does already have built-in additionals, by the way. So then you could get a triple super technically with like amazing RNG. Then you're getting 50% defense 3 times for 3 turns. Obviously, that's very good. That's going to make it to where the next turn you have him, his start of turn defensive stat is going to be very good. He gets some start of turn key, which is really good for a TUR, a reasonable start of turn attack and defense buff. He gets 80% attack and defense on super, and then he gets the additional that has a medium chance becoming a super attack when HP is 59% or more. So this is worded in the way we like it. It's an additional that has a medium chance of becoming a super. So even if you give him just a little bit of additionals in the hidden potential system, because he's launching that additional, just guaranteed all the time, it'll help the hidden potential system additional super proc more often. And then also, most of the time, you are going to be above 59% HP, so you should have that additional majority of the time when using him. And then he builds up 10% attack and defense with every attack performed up to 50%. It's a nice little stat buff. And then he gets the 6% damage reduction with every attack received up to 30%. So when everything's said and done, when he's fully built up, he's carried over some attack and defense into the next couple turns. This guy can look really impressive, but same thing with the Bardock. There is some issues with this guy. Maybe for the first couple turns before you have this damage reduction, before you have this 50% attack and defense build up, before you get the 50% attack and defense from this, he might not look that crazy. His stats might be kind of low, especially if he's only 55% and if he doesn't have that damage reduction. So there's issues with him, but if you let him do his thing, if you let him build up and then kind of stack with his super attack effect, then he can look very impressive. And obviously, he's on some really good teams. He works pretty well with the God Goku. I don't think he links with him, but he'd be a good unit to still throw on the team. You know, it's a God Goku, so he links well with a lot of top-tier units as well. So, a good unit to pick. but there are other options. So then next up, we do have the Str Piccolo. I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. This guy isn't great for all types of content, but in Super Battle Road and World Tournament, this guy is going to be insane. So he has that first turn where he has the guaranteed crit. Obviously, that's very good. Also, he does get 30% defense on super attack effect, so then if you build him maybe with some additionals, you get the double super. That will be good for stuff like World Tournament and Super Battle Road because it gives you the chance to do more damage because he's got that AoE right here, so then 2 of these super attacks is going to do a lot of damage. But then also you get the 30% defense twice, and obviously that is good. He starts off with 200% attack and defense, very good stat buff. He's also orb changing, so Ki isn't really going to be an issue with him because he's orb changing for STR, and he does so happen to be STR. He also gets 20% attack and defense per Ki sphere obtained, obviously very good because he's orb changing, so most of the time you are going to get a lot of Ki spheres with him. And then he gets 2 Ki, 50% attack and defense, and then a 20% crit chance when facing only one enemy. So in most content, obviously you're going to have this activated, there's only going to be one enemy. But if you are in World Tournament or Super Battle Road or something like that, then you get the guaranteed crit for the first turn and then an extra 6 Ki. So Ki is never really going to be an issue with this guy between him orb changing and then between him getting 6 Ki start a turn when there's 2 enemies. And even if there's 1 enemy, you still get this 2 Ki thing right here. So very good unit all around. Like I said, for World Tournament, for Super Battle Road, Extreme Super Battle Road, this guy definitely is very good. And also, he's on Namekians, which has got to be one of my favorite teams in the game. So already with that, makes him a very good unit. So yeah, definitely good for select content, but even in normal content with this buff right here, he can be pretty useful. Just maybe try not to throw him in the slot, which has the most attacks, right? And then next up, we do have the AGL Trunks and Mai. So these guys are very, very good. Out of all the units here, I would say they're probably the second best, or maybe tied for the best. So they just got their EZA for the latest Worldwide Down celebration. Yeah, they're very good. Not a whole lot to say, really. 50% attack and defense on super. They've got damage reduction when there's a full Future Saga category rotation. Not that big of a deal. Most of the time you're running them on that team. Also, they get extra stats when there's a Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Goku on the team. Not that difficult. Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Goku obviously has a lot of units in the game. Also, there's a lot of extra stat buffs when there's a Future Saga category enemy. After the latest Worldwide Down celebration, there's a lot of this as well. So that's definitely not that bad. And then this buff right here is pretty common as well because, like I just said, after the latest Worldwide Down celebration, there's a lot of this in difficult content. So definitely a very good unit. He's got the active skill as well, which hits very hard. And there's really no going wrong with him. As a slot 2 unit, he's going to be amazing because of the 50% defense and then the damage reduction. So, like I said, not a whole lot to talk about. Just a very good unit to pick. And then finally, we do have the AGL Golden Frieza. I don't think this guy ever is not going to be good. Like, you run him on the Wicked Bloodline team or the Terrifying Conquerors team. You know, you have him linked with all these other Friezas, with all these other coolers. He's going to be amazing. The main thing with him is this. I mean, there's so much value with this right here. 90% damage reduction when HP is 40% or more is crazy. If you go full dodge with him, then obviously you're dodging a lot of attacks as well. His damage is going to suck, but that doesn't matter. Damage isn't even a factor with this guy. His damage is going to be under 1,000,000. So, you know, that tells you. His damage definitely sucks, but his defense is insane. He's pushing 100k defense, which sucks on its own, but with 90% damage reduction, obviously that's very good. Now, I think this goes without saying, but if he doesn't have this damage reduction, let's say you're below 40% HP, which is pretty uncommon, but it'll still happen, then this guy's an absolute zero, because he's doing no damage, and defensively, he sucks. You're only really going to see him barely get that 100k defense mark, but that's like an amazing rotation for him. So 55%, he's definitely not going to be at 100k defense. So that's why going primarily dodge with him or giving him as much dodge as possible, whether that's on equips or the hidden potential system or however you want to do it, then, you know, would be very good, because then if you don't have the damage reduction, you're basically only relying on dodge with this guy. But still, most of the time, you're going to be above 40% HP, and then also 90% damage reduction. So, you know, there's no going wrong with this guy, especially if you need another option for your Wicked Bloodline team, for your Terrifying Conquerors team, or honestly, any of these teams, because this is a very good Extreme Class unit just for the game overall. You know, Inhuman Deeds, Terrifying Conquerors, Full Power, Movie Bosses, Wicked Bloodline, Revenge, Planetary Destruction, Gifted Warriors, Target Goku, Sworn Enemies. All of those are really weak teams that then having a unit like this who's a defensive juggernaut is going to be very useful on. So I guess that pretty much has been the video. Just to reiterate all the options, we got the EZA Golden Frieza, we got the EZA Trunks and Mai, got the STR Piccolo, we got the God Goku, and then the physical Bardock. Now, there's a couple other good options here and there. I wouldn't say they're necessarily on the level of the units that I mentioned already, but they're still pretty useful. I guess like STR Topo can be a pretty solid support. The Int Oceanus just got her EZA. I mean, that's pretty much it. I guess STR Rage Vegeta can be pretty good as well. And then Physical Kefla. But mainly the units that I mentioned are the ones you're going to want to get, especially if you don't have them. So that pretty much has been the video. Let me know which unit you decided to get with your gift card, or if you just decided to get the Kai, because if you've got all of them rainbowed, I mean, that's pretty much all the gift card's really useful for, right? But once again, has been the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.